Okay, um, yeah, I came on because there's like there's people like talking about like how like they're being forced to take the jobs in their workplace, and that they're making it mandatory like in place of employment to like get the job. I wanted to pull up a video so for those who to like show people like like what rights like they have, or like if they're not sure like what rights they have, like if they're being forced to if they're being forced by their employer to take the job. I want to pull up a video for for people to see so they can maybe get a little bit of a better understanding of what rights they have if their if their employer is forcing them to get the job.
The Delta variant circulating and cases rising, the pressure is on to vaccinate. And the list of companies choosing to mandate vaccines for staff seems to be growing every day, raising concerns and questions about workers' rights. Employment lawyer Lior Samfiru joins us now for another segment of Work What's Next. Good morning, Lior. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Candice.
So we have the MLSC, the TTC, and even some banks, just to name a few, coming out with vaccine mandates. Some would say even ultimatums for staff. It kind of feels like we're in uncharted waters here when it comes to vaccine mandating in the workplace, and with these workplaces figuring things out as they go. Are you concerned by all of this?
Well, I think a lot of these employers that are doing this, you mentioned just a few, are under the assumption that this is legal, that this is something that they can do. But there are some significant concerns with the legality of imposing vaccines. In most cases, for private enterprises, it's still not legal. It could be a human rights violation to impose a vaccine. And a lot of these employers are potentially doing it simply thinking, well, we're going to do it regardless of the legal liability. But there is that liability. Another liability that these employers will have is if they do let employees go because they did not get vaccinated, they'll have to pay them severance, potentially as much as 2 years' pay. And I don't think that's something these businesses are taking into account and consideration. So it's not as simple as simply saying, we've decided to vaccinate everyone and you have to be vaccinated in order to work here.
So the TTC union, representing about 12,000 of TTC staff, was pretty swift in coming out and saying that they would fight these mandates requiring vaccines. Rather, do they have a leg to stand on? Is this something unions can fight and win?
I do believe that they can, and I think that the likelihood of succeeding is actually quite good. It is potentially a human rights violation to require a medical procedure and also to distinguish as between people with COVID and without COVID. So I think the union may well be successful, and potentially private individuals, non-unionized individuals, who choose to challenge the mandatory vaccine policy that their employer imposes may be successful at the Human Rights Tribunal or in the courts in challenging those policies. And again, a lot of employers are doing it despite that risk, thinking that perhaps this is for the better public good, but it does come with significant legal liability.
Okay, so the province has also come out with a mandate around vaccines. Does their policy actually change anything? In other words, can staff be fired if they choose not to get vaccinated?
So the province called this a mandatory vaccine policy, but what's important to remember is that it's not mandatory vaccine, it's a mandatory policy. In other words, employers are required to have a policy about vaccines, but they still cannot choose to implement vaccines as mandatory or else. The only thing the province is requiring employers to do is if you're not going to have employees that are vaccinated, they have to undergo regular tests. So that does not allow employers to implement mandatory vaccine policies, to have vaccines as a cross-the-board requirement, and that liability still exists. It would have been very easy for the provincial government to say, you have to have vaccines in certain industries or else you cannot have employees. They've chosen not to do that. And as of right now, employers in public sector, employers in the healthcare sector or in other sectors still cannot unilaterally choose to impose vaccines.
And finally, you've also been getting questions from clients over work performance issues. So, can an employer terminate for cause due to performance issues?
Keep in mind that a termination for cause means you're let go without any compensation, and that is considered the capital punishment of the employment relationship. It's reserved for the worst offenders. So the fact that you may have done something wrong or even a few things wrong does not mean you can be let go for cause without compensation. Only if you've done something terrible, and usually if the employer has warned you in advance, can then you be terminated for cause. Otherwise, that's a wrongful dismissal. Can then you be terminated for cause. Otherwise, that's a wrongful dismissal.
Okay, lots of insight as always. Thank you again. That is Lior Samfiru, employment lawyer.
So that was the end of the video, and if if you don't want to watch the video, there's also like a description below of there's like a description below of or like a summary below of like what they're talking about, of what the lawyer was talking about. So if you don't want to watch the video, you can just like scroll down and read this part. You can read like this, like you can read this, which is basically a summary of the whole video. So yeah, if you don't want to watch the video, you can just read this. You can just scroll down and read the description. So and there's also something else I wanted to show as well. So this time, like it's a website. So I'm gonna try and pull it up. So th- so this is from the website called Samfiru to Markin LLP. So this is like an employment law firm. So like so the lawyer that was speaking earlier in the video, he's from this firm. So he works for this firm. So this is like the website. So if you want to like know more like information, then you can also go on the website as well. So let me let me just scroll down. So it says mandatory jobs for. So it says, can my employer mandate the COVID-19 jab? So when I scroll down, it says mandatory jobs for employees. So 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 here it says In Canada, an employer can't automatically impose a job mandate for non-unionized employees. Any policy that attempts to force employees to get fully jabbed against COVID-19 may be illegal due to discrimination based on perceived disability and a violation of their human rights. So now it says a company's policy on jobs may be considered legal if the government that regulates the workplace, provincial or federal, mandates jobs for that particular workplace or sector of employment. Continue reading to learn more about your rights, including what happens if you're fired for refusing to get jabbed. You can also sign up for a live online Q&A session on pandemic employment rights with leading Canadian employment lawyer Lior Samfiru. So he was the lawyer that was speaking in the video I showed earlier. So you can also sign up for a live online Q&A session if you want. Um, so now I have to scroll down. So, so now it says, can I be fired for refusing a COVID-19 jab? So unless the jabs are mandated by government, it is illegal for a company to fire an employee for a cause if they refuse to get fully jabbed against COVID-19. That said, you can't physically prevent your employer from ending your employment relationship. If that happens, the company may owe you monetary damages. So that's like another another word for compensation and yeah, that's like another word for yeah, severance pay. So yeah, like compensation or severance pay. So that's what so monetary damages is something like it's like another word for that. So it says an employer may face a claim for wrongful dismissal from a worker if they're let go without the proper amount of severance pay. So up to 24 months' pay or no severance package at all. The company may also face reinstatement and human rights claims for terminating or letting an employee go in this case. If you lose your job in Ontario, Alberta, or British Columbia due to a mandate put in place by your employer, contact the employment lawyers at Samfiru Tumarkin LLP immediately to learn about the compensation you may be owed. And it says Samfiru Tumarkin LLP is Canada's most positively reviewed, well-known authority on employment law for employees. Get the advice you need, the compensation you deserve. So, so next it says mandatory jobs and rights for unionized employees. If you're a unionized employee working in Canada, you must refer to your union for guidance and representation on all matters relating to COVID-19 jab mandates and all other employment law matters. As per your collective bargaining agreement, only the union can represent you on employment matters. If you have a dispute with your employer about a workplace issue, including terms of employment, disputes, termination, and severance pay, you must bring your grievance to your union representative. An employment lawyer is unable to legally represent you in these matters, even if the union has decided not to support you. So here, and it's in like bold. It says like an employment lawyer cannot represent you if you're like unionized or if you're with a union. So like, and even if the union decides not to support you, then you still can get access to an employment lawyer if you decide to take legal action against your employer. So um, and then it continues. It says a unionized employee who feels that they have been abandoned by their union may be able to file a duty of fair representation complaint against their union with the labor board. So then the next one says, can my employer ask for proof of getting the jab or jab status? No, unless there is a government mandate. That said, an employer may choose to terminate an employee who does not provide proof of getting the job, and that employee would be owed severance and other damages. So here it says if you get fired or terminated because you decide not to provide proof of getting the shot, then like if then your employer would have to pay you like severance if they decide to like fire you for not like providing proof of the job of getting the job. So and then next one says can I be put on unpaid leave of absence if I refuse to get jabbed? So it says your employer can't put you on an unpaid leave of absence if you fail to get fully jabbed by the company's deadline. This represents a significant change to your job. Your employer has effectively ended your employment. You may have the choice of leaving your job with a full severance package, as much as 24 months' pay, through a constructive dismissal claim. Contact our team today to find out if you have a legitimate claim for severance before you resign from your position over this change. Here it says they can't put you on unpaid leave of absence if you don't get jabbed by like the deadline the workplace gives you. So yeah, and if you get like fired or terminated, then they would have to give you then they would have to give you like severance or compensation for that. So and next one says, can my employer penalize me if I don't get jabbed? An employer can't penalize, reduce pay or duties, or terminate an employee based on their job status. So this one here I think might be what a lot of people are asking. So as to whether their employer can like terminate or fire them if they don't get jabbed. So here it says like they can't. So here it says they can like so they actually can't penalize you or terminate you like based on your job status. So whether or not like you've taken the shot or not, like that's not a determination for whether your employer should fire you. So Next one says, can my employer force me to get rapid testing if I do not get the job? It is not illegal for an employer to ask for regular. So it is not illegal for an employer to ask for regular rapid tests or COVID-19 tests. That said, if you are let go for refusing, you will be owed full severance pay. In a situation where the government works for an industry where the government has imposed a requirement for COVID 19 tests, for example, in Ontario, that would be hospitals and long term care homes, and the employee refuses to get tested and is let go, they are not owed severance. So I don't know if so for this part I don't know if it only applies to like the hospitals and long term care homes or if it's the public sector in general, but it says like if there's like a government like requirement and that the employees refuse to get tested and and if they get terminated then they won't be given any like compensation or severance. So next one says, can my employer force me to pay for my own rapid testing? No, the employer can't force you to pay for COVID-19 rapid testing. They should cover the costs. An employee who is forced to cover costs for rapid tests may be able to claim constructive dismissal, termination with a severance package. So yeah, so the employers, so yeah, so they even they can't even force you to get like these like rapid tests or and if you refuse to take the rapid test, then like if they choose to like terminate you or fire you for not taking the rapid test, they would still have to pay you like they would still have to pay you like a severance package. So and also like for why would the employee have to pay for like the rapid test because like it's their workplace that's forcing them to take it. So I don't understand like why would the employee have to like pay pay for the rapid test from their own pocket if they're being like forced to do it by their workplace, since the workplace might have like policies saying they have to do it. So like the workplace should be able to pay for that themselves. Why would the employee like pay from their own pocket if they have to take a test like that 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 like they're not supposed that that they don't want to take in the first place. and and also like there's been like court rulings like in Europe, like there's been like case law or court cases that have like have mentioned that the um that the rapid test, the PCR swabs and all that, like those are actually like unlawful and unconstitutional as well. So because first off they don't actually like detect the disease like that they're looking for or that they're supposed to look for, like when they put that in when they put the swab in the nose, like when they put it all the way in your nose, like it doesn't actually help in detecting any diseases. And also the creator of the PCR swab, like his name is Kerry Mullis. He said that like the PCR test, like it wasn't meant to detect diseases. Um, so Yeah, and the courts have ruled that it's unlawful and unconstitutional as well. So, but here in Canada, it's still being done, which I don't know why it's still being done here. So, and also like the rapid test, the PCR swabs, like they're also like a violation of um of like your autonomy, bodily rights, and autonomy rights. Yeah, it's a violation of like your bodily rights as you're being forced to get a swab, like as as you're forced to get a swab like into your nose, and if it's like if the person who's like putting the swab in your nose, if they put it in too far into your nose, it's gonna like give you like problems like brain damage and other sorts of problems. So it's also like a violation of your like like bodily rights and also human rights, as well as you might suffer like you might suffer some type of problem like brain damage if they push the swab too far into your nose. So so the next one says, can I refuse to do rapid testing if I'm not jabbed? You can refuse rapid testing if you're not jabbed against COVID-19, but your your employer may choose to let you go, in which case you would be owed a full severance package. So so they can force you to do like the rapid test as well, and if if they do if they do like terminate or fire you for not taking the test, then they would have to pay you like a full severance package for it. So the next one says, can I be terminated for cause for not complying with my employer's rapid testing, masking, or other pandemic protocols? An employee can only be terminated for cause if the employee refuses to do something mandated by the government. So if there is a government mandate for masking or tests and the employee does not comply, it can lead it can lead to a termination for cause. So that's if there's no government mandate and the employee is terminated, it would be a termination without cause. So so if there's a government requirement or mandate for like ma- for any for like the masking or tests, then if the employee decides not to do it, and if the employee decides not to do it, then they would be and then if the employee decides not to like comply, then it would be a termination for cause. And then it says if there's no government mandate and the employee is terminated, it would be a termination without cause. So I think the first part here, the former, I think it refers to mostly like the public sector. I think so because I know like the government, they're trying to make it mandatory for people in the public sector to get the job. So and then I think the second part here, I think this one applies to private sector businesses. So because the private sector they have like their own policies and all that. So if they fire someone for not complying with this, then it would be a termination without cause. And then next one, this one says if the government does mandate the job, can I be terminated with cause if I work in that mandated sector? So it says yes, but you have to make sure that the government has, in fact, mandated it and given no other options. This one says, can a lawyer notarize a letter from my priest, rabbi, or imam stating moral issue with the job? Only if that is what the employer specifically said that it requires. It's not something an employee can just choose to provide. This one says, can a lawyer write a letter on my behalf stating that my medical documents exempt me from the job? No, you need a letter from your doctor or medical professional supporting your medical exemption from getting a COVID-19 jab. I am fully jabbed as per company policy. Can I refuse to get a booster shot if my employer requires me to get one in the future? Your employer's ability update their company policy to mandate a COVID-19 booster shot for employees will depend on any government mandates. If the government mandates that your company must require employees to get a booster shot, then you may need one. You may need to get one. So this one I think it mostly applies to the public sector because I know like because I know the government they're like trying to make it mandatory for employees in the public sector to get the job and also even the booster shots as well. So I think that part I think mostly applies to the public sector. So and now moving on. It says I want to file a charter challenge against the government over COVID-19 jab mandates. Can you help me? We can't help you with a charter challenge against the government. The employment lawyers at Samfiru Tumarkin LLP only deal in issues between employees and employers. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms only applies to what the government does. It does not apply to private business. So here, this one's asking about a charter challenge. So this law firm here, it's only they're an employment law firm, so they can't actually help with with constitutional or charter challenges. So for that for that you'd have to like you'd have to speak to a constitutional lawyer for that because this law firm they only deal with like employees and employers, so they don't deal with like charter or constitutional issues. So this one, so yeah, so for this question, like you'd have to consult a constitutional lawyer for this, because these guys they only deal with like workplace issues. So like any issues in the workplace, like this law firm will help you. But if you're looking to like file a charter or a constitutional challenge, then you'd have to like speak to a constitutional lawyer for that, as they would be better suited to help you with like, yeah, they would be better suited to help you like to like filing your claim and all that. So like I know one lawyer, like one constitutional lawyer, is Rocco Galati. Like I think maybe he can maybe help with like the constitutional or charter challenges, um but yeah, like it's not easy because I'm sure he's gonna be like asking for a lot of money if you really want to like file a constitutional or charter challenge. So it's not really easy. And next one says, what happens if I don't respond to my employer's request to get the job? So your employer may choose to let you go if you fail to respond to their request to get a COVID-19 job. There's nothing you nor our firm can do to stop them from firing you. However, you would likely be owed full severance pay, as much as 24 months is paid depending on numerous factors. If you do lose your job, contact our team immediately so we can work to secure full compensation. So here it says that if your if your employer fires you for not taking the job, then they would have to pay you like severance. They'd have to give you severance pay for that. So it's it's not like you're being fired for nothing. So they would still have to give you like severance pay for that, because they they can't like fire you based on like whether or not you've taken the COVID jab, like whether or not you've taken the COVID jab. Like they can't fire you based on that decision. So and I think that's everything. So yeah, I think that's everything. So that's everything. So if you're not yeah, so I hope that helped. And if for those of you who want to know like what your rights are, or if you're concerned about like, or if you're being forced to get the job by your employer, then that can help you out, as it's been stated on the website and by the lawyer in the video I showed earlier. Like they can't force you to take the job, and also, and if they choose to terminate or fire you based on whether based on your refusal to take the job, then they would have to give you like full severance, yeah, full severance pay or compensation. Yeah, like they'd have to give you like full severance pay for that, as they're not as they're not actually allowed to like force you to take those like jobs. So um yeah, so if you want to know like more, if you want to know more about that, I've also like included a link to the video I showed, and also a link to the website earlier. So if you want to read, if you want to have a look for yourselves, then I provided a link for them. I provided a link for both of them. Um, you can have a look for yourself. So like I hope people are like more informed and better, and like then they're more aware of what their rights are, because many people think that they don't have like any rights, or they just think like whatever or they just think like whatever the government says, like they should just do whatever the government says. Like they don't realize that they have like their own rights, and that just because the government says like they're gonna like implement something like a job mandate, that doesn't mean like you have to like take it. And also, and especially like in the private sector, if they're implementing the job policy, then you don't actually have to take it. And also the rapid test as well, you don't have to take that as well. And if your workplace or if your employer decides to fire you based on your refusal to take any of them, then any of those two, then they would have to give you like full severance pay for it, as they're not allowed to like fire or terminate you based on whether based on your job status, whether or not you're taking the job, or whether or like your refusal to take the rapid test. So yeah, I hope that was like informative, and um, yeah, I hope that helped people, and and like and better informing what their rights are. So yeah, that's I hope that was helpful. So yeah, that's everything I had to show. Um, yeah, and yeah, if you want to have a look for yourself, I've provided a link in the description. So if you want to have a look at the video or the website, like I've included a link in the description, so you can have a look at the video and website for yourself if you wanna watch it. So yeah, I'm gonna like sign off now. So.